I never thought one small promise would change everything I knew about myself. It started on an ordinary evening, in the quiet hum of our old house, when my younger sister Mia sat cross-legged on the floor of her room surrounded by makeup brushes, nail polish, and laughter that filled the air like sunlight. She looked up at me with those big hopeful eyes and said, "You know, I always wished I had a sister to do this stuff with." I laughed it off, pretending not to hear the faint sting in her voice. I was her brother, the one who fixed her bike, carried heavy boxes, teased her about her favorite shows. A sister. That wasn't me. But I remember the pause that followed, and how she sighed quietly as if the thought really meant something to her. Maybe that's why I said it, that one line that changed everything. "If you really want, I could be your sister for a day." She froze, then her face lit up in disbelief. "You'd really do that?" she asked. I nodded, half joking, but inside I felt a strange warmth, like I'd just crossed into something unexpected. The next morning, Mia was already waiting, excitement buzzing in her voice. "Come on, I've got everything ready," she said, dragging me into her room like she was unveiling a secret plan. On her bed lay a carefully folded outfit, a soft pink sweater, a pleated skirt, and a wig that looked eerily real. I almost backed out right there. My heart raced, but something in her smile made me stay. She guided me step by step, applying makeup with a seriousness that made me oddly nervous. "You've got nice eyes," she murmured as she brushed eyeliner across my lids. "You'd make a really pretty girl, you know." I didn't answer. I just sat there, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. When she finally handed me a mirror, I froze. The person staring back wasn't me, or maybe it was a part of me I'd never met before. My chest tightened, and I couldn't look away. It was strange. It wasn't just makeup and clothes. It was like something deeper had shifted, quietly, without asking permission. Mia squealed and hugged me. "Oh my God, you look like my sister," she said, spinning me around. I wanted to laugh, but the sound that came out was quiet and shaky. For the rest of the day, she treated me like her long-lost twin. We painted our nails, took pictures, and watched movies together, laughing until our stomachs hurt. For her, it was innocent fun. For me, it was something else, confusing, heavy, yet freeing. That night, after she fell asleep, I stayed up staring at my reflection again. I should have felt ridiculous. But instead, I felt right. Like for the first time in my life, I was looking at the person I was supposed to be. I told myself it was just one day. But the next week, when Mia asked if we could do it again, I didn't say no. And then it happened again. And again. Each time, she'd call me Lila, a name she said sounded like it belonged to her sister. The more she said it, the more it felt like mine. Lila. It rolled off my tongue like something I'd been hiding for years. Soon, it wasn't just makeup days. She'd hand me her clothes and say, "You'd look so cute in this." And I would. I'd tell myself it was just to make her happy, but deep down, I knew I was lying. Then one day, Mom walked in. It was late afternoon, Mia was curling my hair and we were laughing when the door creaked open. Time froze. Mom's eyes darted between us, from the wig on my head to the dress I was wearing. She didn't say a word, just stared. My blood turned cold. I waited for her to yell, to demand an explanation, but she didn't. She simply said, "Dinner's ready," and left the room. I sat there trembling. Mia touched my hand and whispered, "It's okay." But it didn't feel okay. At dinner, Mom didn't look at me. The silence between us was sharp, filled with unspoken questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe it was time to stop. The next morning, Mom called me to the kitchen. I braced myself for the lecture I knew was coming. But instead, she sighed and said quietly, "Your sister told me everything." My heart pounded. "Everything?" I asked. She nodded. "That it makes you both happy. That she finally feels like she has the sister she always wanted." She paused, her eyes softening. "I don't understand it completely, but, if this is part of who you are, I don't want to take it away from you." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, stunned, as tears welled up in my eyes. I hadn't realized how heavy the secret had become until that moment. From then on, things were different. Mom didn't mention it again, But I noticed small things: how she'd set aside laundry with both mine and Mia's clothes, how she started saying you girls instead of you two. It was strange at first, but comforting too. Still, outside that house, I wasn't ready. I didn't tell anyone else. I kept Lila hidden, safe in that small world we'd built. Until one day, that world cracked. It happened when Mia's best friend, Claire, came over unexpectedly. I didn't know she was coming, and I was still in full Lila mode: pink sweater, light makeup, everything. When the doorbell rang, Mia ran to answer it, and I didn't have time to hide. Claire's eyes widened as she saw me. For a long second, no one spoke. Then she smiled, almost too casually, and said, "Oh, so this is your sister?" I froze, my throat dry. Mia didn't hesitate. "Yeah," she said, "this is Lila." Claire didn't question it. She just smiled wider and came in like nothing was strange. We spent the afternoon together, my heart pounding the whole time. But to my surprise, Claire was kind. She complimented my outfit, even asked where I got my shoes. When she left, I asked Mia why she'd done that. "Because that's who you are to me," she said simply. "My sister." Something about her confidence gave me strength I didn't know I had. Weeks turned into months. Lila became a part of my life that I couldn't separate anymore. The line between pretending and being had disappeared. I started taking care of my appearance differently, noticing how my movements, my tone, my expression all felt softer when I was her, when I was me. But with that came fear. I wondered if people at school would find out, if my friends would laugh, if Dad, who was away for work, would understand. Then came the day that changed everything again. Dad came home early. I wasn't expecting him, and neither was Mia. I was in the kitchen, wearing jeans and a loose blouse, when he walked in. He stared at me for a long moment before realizing who I was. "What's going on here?" he asked, confusion twisting his face. My heart dropped. I couldn't lie this time. I told him everything: how it started, what it meant, what I was feeling. His face was unreadable. I waited for anger, disappointment, something. But he just looked at me, sighed deeply, and said, "I don't understand it yet. But I can see you're not hurting anyone. Just promise me you'll be okay." It wasn't approval, but it wasn't rejection either. And that was enough. Over time, it became normal. My family accepted me for who I was, even if it took them a while to fully understand. Mia and I became closer than ever, not as siblings bound by blood, but as sisters bound by truth. She'd often say, "I always wanted a sister who understood me, and now I have one." But what she didn't know was that I needed her just as much. She gave me the courage to find myself in a place I never thought to look. The first time I went out as Lila in public, it was Mia who stood by my side. We went to a cafe far from home, just the two of us. My hands shook as I held the cup, waiting for the stares, the whispers. But no one cared. People smiled, the barista called me miss, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was pretending. When we left, Mia grabbed my hand and said, "See? You belong." That night, I looked at my reflection one more time, the reflection I used to fear, the one that once confused me, and I smiled. I realized Mia hadn't just given me a name or a disguise. She'd given me a chance to see who I really was beneath everything I thought I had to be. She wanted a sister, but somewhere along the way, I realized I'd wanted one too, someone to show me it was okay to be different, to be real, to be me. Now, when people ask about my story, I tell them it began with a joke, a promise made to a sister who just wanted company. But it became something much more. It became the journey of discovering that identity isn't a role you play, it's a truth you uncover. I became the sister she always wanted, and, in the process, I became the person I always needed. And maybe that's what love really means, not just accepting someone else, but finding the courage to accept yourself, too. The hardest part wasn't putting on the clothes anymore. It was taking them off. Each time I did, it felt like I was peeling away a part of myself that wanted to breathe, that wanted to exist beyond the safety of those bedroom walls. I tried to ignore it, to push it down, telling myself that Lila was just a side of me, something small and harmless. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't true anymore. Lila was real. She was me. And the more I tried to hide her, the more the world around me began to feel like a mask instead. It was around that time that the whispers started. I didn't know how it spread. Maybe someone saw me out once, or maybe Claire mentioned something to a friend, but soon, people at school started acting differently. A few snickers in the hallway, a strange look here and there, and then the cruel nickname, Pretty Boy. I laughed it off when my friends teased me, pretending it didn't sting, but every joke cut deeper than I let on. Mia noticed. One night, she came into my room and found me sitting in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, half-dressed, half her brother, half her sister. "You don't have to hide from me," she said softly. "You can just be you." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But what did me even mean anymore? The next day, things escalated. During lunch, one of the older boys snatched my phone and started scrolling through my photos. I froze as he found the ones Mia had taken, the pictures of me smiling in dresses, posing awkwardly but genuinely happy. "What's this?" he laughed, showing everyone. I felt the world tilt. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear their voices. Before I knew it, I'd grabbed my phone and ran. I didn't stop until I was far away, hiding behind the bleachers, gasping for breath. I felt exposed, humiliated, like everything I had carefully kept private had been ripped open for the world to mock. I didn't go back to school the next day. Or the day after that. I stayed in my room, curtains drawn, the outside world fading into background noise. Mia tried to cheer me up, but I couldn't face anyone. The idea of being seen again terrified me. I remember Mom knocking on my door one night and sitting beside me quietly. She didn't say much, just held my hand the way she used to when I was little. "The world can be cruel," she said finally. "But it can also surprise you with kindness. You just have to live long enough to see it." Those words stuck with me. Eventually, I went back to school. The whispers hadn't completely stopped, but something had changed in me. I was tired of running from who I was. So when a few kids snickered, I just looked at them and said, "Yeah, that's me." They didn't know what to do with that. The power of shame disappeared the moment I stopped giving it oxygen. Mia hugged me that night and told me she was proud. That was the first time in months I felt light again. A few weeks later, our school announced a charity event, a talent showcase. Mia immediately signed up to perform a duet and, to my horror, added my name beside hers. "You're singing with me," she said, daring me to argue. As Lila. I thought she'd lost her mind. Performing as myself was hard enough, but as her sister, in front of everyone, I almost refused, but the way she looked at me, I couldn't. Maybe it was time to stop hiding completely. The night of the performance, I thought my heart would explode. Backstage, I could hear the crowd murmuring, the buzz of voices mixing with the sound of the microphone being tested. Mia squeezed my hand. "You look amazing," she whispered. I had chosen a simple dress, soft blue, nothing flashy, but I felt exposed all the same. When our names were called, we stepped into the light. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the music began, and I did what I always did when I was scared. I followed Mia's lead. We sang. Our voices wove together, shaky at first, then steady, then strong. I could see faces in the crowd, some surprised, some confused, some smiling. But for once, it didn't matter what they thought. I was just there, alive, whole. When we finished, there was a long pause, and then applause. Real applause. It wasn't everyone, but it was enough. Afterward, a few students came up to me, not to mock, but to say I'd been brave. That word brave felt strange. I didn't feel brave. I just felt like someone who finally stopped pretending to be someone else. Even the boy who'd stolen my phone mumbled an awkward apology. I didn't forgive him right away, but it didn't haunt me anymore. The fear that used to choke me had finally loosened its grip. That performance changed things. Slowly, the laughter stopped. People got used to seeing me around. Some still whispered, but others began to smile or wave. Teachers treated me with quiet respect, like they knew something personal had been won that night. Mia started getting questions too, not cruel ones, but curious. "Is she really your sister?" they'd ask, and she'd always answer with the same grin. "Yes. She's my sister. Always has been." One afternoon, a girl from another class came up to me in the hallway. She looked nervous. "I saw you perform," she said quietly. "It meant a lot." I feel like that sometimes too." I didn't know what to say. But that moment stayed with me, the realization that maybe my story could mean something beyond myself. As months passed, life started to feel normal again. Not the kind of normal I used to know, but a better one. A truer one. At home, Dad still sometimes hesitated with pronouns, but he tried, and that meant everything. Mom began calling me Lila more naturally. And Mia, she was my anchor through it all. She'd drag me out shopping, make me try on ridiculous outfits, laugh when I complained, and remind me, "You're beautiful, whether you believe it or not." Eventually, I stopped separating my two selves. There was no before or after, no brother or sister. Just me. And the more I accepted that, the lighter life became. I started dreaming again of studying fashion design, of maybe one day helping others feel as free as I'd learned to be. Still, every now and then, I think back to that first day, the nervous laughter, the wig, the pink sweater. How innocent it seemed. How much it changed. If I could go back and tell that scared version of myself anything, I'd say this: you're not losing who you are. You're finding her. It's strange, isn't it? How something that began as a simple act of love, a sister wanting a companion, became the doorway to my truth. Mia gave me permission to exist as I really am, even before I knew I needed it. She didn't just want a sister. She helped me discover the one hiding inside me all along. Now, when I walk past the mirror, I see her, the girl who once felt like a secret. I see strength in her eyes, a quiet kind of courage. I see the reflection of someone who was broken, then rebuilt piece by piece through acceptance and love. I see Lila, the sister Mia always wanted, and the person I was always meant to become. And maybe that's how life works sometimes. We spend so long trying to fit into the version of ourselves we think people expect, only to realize the real freedom comes when we stop trying at all. I didn't become someone new. I just stopped hiding the person I already was. So yes, I became the sister she always wanted. But what surprises me most even now is that I became the person I always wanted too. A year passed before I truly realized how far I had come. Sometimes, when I walked through the streets, I caught people staring not out of cruelty, but out of simple curiosity. And it didn't scare me anymore. The world hadn't changed much, but somehow, I had learned to move within it differently. I carried myself taller. I smiled more. I spoke with the kind of quiet confidence that comes only after surviving something that once terrified you. But even as life began to steady, there were moments when the past crept back in. Sometimes I'd wake up and wonder if all of it had been some strange dream, if the girl in the mirror was real or just a costume I'd gotten too comfortable wearing. And in those moments of doubt, Mia would always seem to appear. She had this way of sensing when I was slipping. "You're thinking too much again," she'd tease, handing me coffee or tugging at my sleeve. "You're still my sister, even when your mind tries to tell you otherwise." I think she understood something long before I did, that identity isn't something you find once and keep forever. It's something you keep rediscovering, layer by layer, as you live. There were still days when I felt uncertain, when I missed the simplicity of being invisible. But those feelings didn't control me anymore. They just reminded me I was human. Then came an invitation that changed everything again: our school's end-of-year ceremony. They wanted me to speak. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Me, the same person who once hid behind the bleachers. But the principal said my story had inspired others, that I'd become a quiet symbol of courage. The thought terrified me. What if I said the wrong thing? What if I wasn't brave enough when it mattered most? The night before the ceremony, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my bed with an old photo album spread across my lap, pictures from before everything changed. There I was, shorter hair, forced smiles, eyes that looked lost even when I didn't know why. I flipped the page and found a newer photo, me and Mia, laughing, her arm wrapped around me. I looked so different, but more than that, I looked alive. That was when I realized what I wanted to say. The next morning, I stood on stage in front of hundreds of faces. My hands trembled around the microphone. I could see my parents in the front row, Mia smiling proudly beside them. I took a deep breath and began. "A year ago," I said, I thought I knew who I was. I thought I had to choose between being the person people expected me to be and the person I felt I might become. I was scared of being laughed at, of being misunderstood. But someone reminded me that love doesn't ask you to hide. It invites you to show up exactly as you are. There was a hush across the room. I could see people listening, really listening. I continued, I didn't set out to be brave. I just wanted to make my sister happy. But she gave me something I didn't know I needed: permission to exist. And in finding that courage, I realized I wasn't just becoming who she wanted me to be. I was becoming who I was always meant to be. When I finished, the applause felt unreal. I wasn't sure if they were clapping for me or for the story, but either way, I felt free. Afterward, people came up to me. Some hugged me, some thanked me, and a few just said, "You helped me see myself differently." It was strange, the same place that once made me feel so small was now where I'd found my voice. Later that evening, Mia found me sitting by the fountain outside the school. The lights reflected off the water, soft and golden. She sat beside me, kicking her shoes off. "You did it," she said with a grin. "You made everyone cry." I laughed, wiping my eyes. "Yeah, including me." We sat there for a long time in silence, just listening to the sound of water and distant music. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You know, when I said I wanted a sister, I thought it was just a silly wish. But I think what I really wanted was someone who understood me. Someone who reminded me it's okay to be different." I turned to her and smiled. "You didn't just get a sister, Mia," I said softly. "You gave one to me." That summer was the happiest I'd ever known. The fear that used to haunt every corner of my thoughts had quieted. I started helping out at a local youth center where they hosted art workshops for teens who felt like outsiders, kids who were still trying to figure out where they belonged. Some days I'd see a nervous smile that reminded me of my own, and I'd think, maybe this is why everything happened. Maybe this is how we find meaning in our struggles, by helping others carry theirs. One afternoon, I was painting a mural with a small group of students when I overheard one of them whisper, "She's so confident. I wish I could be like her." I almost laughed. If only they knew how scared I'd once been. But maybe that's what courage really is: not the absence of fear, but the quiet decision to keep going despite it. As autumn came, life moved on. Mia started college in another city, and the day she left, the house felt emptier than I'd expected. Before she got in the car, she hugged me tight and said, "Don't forget who you are, Lila. Promise?" I nodded, trying not to cry. "Promise." Watching her drive away, I realized how much of my journey had been tied to her. She'd been my guide, my mirror, my reason. But now, I had to learn to be that for myself. The first few weeks without her were hard. The silence felt strange. I missed her laughter, her energy, her constant reminders that I was enough. But slowly, I began to fill that space with my own voice. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done in years. I wrote about everything: the confusion, the growth, the tiny victories. Writing helped me understand that transformation doesn't have an end point. It keeps unfolding, reshaping you in ways you don't expect. One night, I stood by the mirror, brushing my hair before bed, and I caught my reflection: calm, steady, no trace of the fear that once lived there. I smiled at her. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. I whispered softly, "Thank you, Mia," as if she could hear me miles away. Months later, I visited her at her dorm. She ran to meet me, grinning, as if no time had passed at all. Her roommate looked at me curiously and said, "So you're the famous sister she's always talking about?" I laughed. "I hope she says nice things." Mia smirked. "Only the truth." That night, as we lay on her bed, talking about life, she asked, "Do you ever miss who you used to be?" I thought about it for a moment. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But not because I want to go back. I just wish I could tell that version of me it's going to be okay." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "You already did," she whispered. "Every time you chose to be yourself." Now, when I think about everything that's happened, I don't see it as one big dramatic change. It feels more like 1,000 quiet moments, choices that built upon each other until I looked around and realized I was no longer pretending. I was living. The journey isn't over. There are still days when the world feels heavy, when old insecurities whisper in the back of my mind. But I've learned to face them with gentleness. Because every time I do, I remember where I started, that small promise made to a sister who just wanted someone to share her world. And maybe that's the most beautiful part of this story. It began as hers, but it became ours. A story about love, courage, and the unexpected ways we find ourselves through the people who believe in us. I became the sister she always wanted, but more importantly, I became someone I'm proud to be. Sometimes, I still catch Mia's old words echoing in my mind, the ones she said long before either of us understood what they meant. You'd make a really pretty girl, you know. Back then, it sounded like a joke. Now, it feels like the truest thing anyone ever said to me.